In isolation this Monday night, all Canadians on that cruise with a hantavirus outbreak return home. How doctors are underscoring this isn't COVID all over again.
This is a virus that we've known about for about 30 years.
The U.S. president rejects Iran's proposal to end the war.
I would say the ceasefire is on massive life support.
And how Canadian businesses are trying to attract tourists deterred by pricey gas. Delays and difficulties, why it's been so tough to revoke the Canadian citizenship of this man, convicted of supporting terrorism. A Global News exclusive.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Passengers on board a cruise ship hit by a hantavirus outbreak are now being repatriated to their home countries, including 2 BC residents and a couple from the Yukon. They were brought home on a special flight chartered by the federal government, and they're isolating on Vancouver Island.
These Canadians have been through a very difficult number of weeks, and it showed last night. They were tired and I would say exhausted, but very relieved and grateful to be back here in Canada.
They had no symptoms of hantavirus. Of the almost 150 passengers and crew on board the Dutch cruise ship, there are just 7 confirmed cases and 3 deaths. Hantavirus is not COVID and is not considered a disease with pandemic potential. We'll have more on that in just a moment, but we begin with Heidi Petracek on the Canadian response.
They're being monitored in appropriate places separately.
There are more details about the 4 Canadians who've left the MV Hondius behind. They're an older couple from Yukon, a senior living in BC's Island Health region, and a British Columbian in their 50s who lives abroad. All instructed to isolate for at least 21 days, closely monitored.
These individuals, the 4 people who are here now, will be followed daily for the 42 days of the risk period.
There's also another Ontarian isolating.
We do have a 3rd individual in the Peel region who is also isolating and being monitored by the local public health unit.
As of Monday, none reported symptoms. Authorities say they are ready if that changes because swift medical intervention is critical.
Within hours to a day, you could go from feeling okay to feeling a little bit crummy to shortness of breath and, drop in blood pressure very rapidly to pulmonary edema.
The complex operation of getting people home started Sunday. Since then, a French woman has tested positive and is in intensive care but stable in Paris. One American also tested positive while asymptomatic, and another has symptoms.
The past few weeks have been extremely challenging to us all.
The captain of the ship issued this video praising the composure of both the customers and crew.
I ask for privacy and respect to our guests and their families and our crew members in this difficult time.
What's happening
the first passenger to speak publicly about what was happening on the ship has also shared an update, posting a photo of himself in isolation in Nebraska, writing, "I'm okay and feeling well." The last people to be sent home disembarked in Spain Monday for their flights, leaving 26 crew members on board as the vessel sails to its home port in the Netherlands to mark the end of its tragic journey. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
Given the recent coronavirus pandemic, it is understandable another infectious virus would trigger unease, but there are huge differences. Unlike coronavirus, hantavirus does not spread easily from person to person. When COVID-19 emerged, it was a new and unknown virus, whereas hantavirus, as Mike Armstrong explains, has been tracked and managed for years.
It is impossible to miss the parallels. An outbreak of a virus on a cruise ship and people being forced into quarantine. It feels like we've been down this road before.
This disease is not COVID.
Well, health officials insist hantavirus is not a repeat of the coronavirus pandemic, and some of those officials are the same people who got us through that pandemic.
Hantavirus is a very different disease, and it's not spread in the same way.
Now, that's one of the big differences, how it spreads. The Andes strain can be passed from person to person, but not as easily as COVID. It's usually between people in the same household, intimate partners, or people providing medical care. But the bigger difference is that health officials this time know what they're dealing with.
This is a virus that we've known about for about 30 years. There's been prior outbreaks with this virus, several of them. All of them have been quelled with routine public health measures.
One of the worst outbreaks was in this Argentine village back in 2018. There were 34 cases after a birthday party, 11 people died. Victor Diaz was identified as patient 0. He survived. His wife did not. Diaz says he went downhill quickly. The same day he went to the hospital, he fell unconscious and didn't wake up for 2 days. Hantavirus is now considered endemic in the region. People have had to learn to live with it. Because it's usually passed from rodents, people do things like wear masks working around garbage. This man says he's careful. Rodents may have been in the trash bin. Now, controlling outbreaks means contact tracing and quarantining. They've been successful so far. The major difference with the cruise ship outbreak is because it's international, it is more complicated. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
The month-long ceasefire between Iran and the U.S. is still holding, but the U.S. president today called it unbelievably weak. And Donald Trump says Iran's proposal to end the war is a piece of garbage, which he has rejected. The central goal of this ceasefire was to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but as Jackson Proskow reports, it is still blocked, and many countries are bracing for energy shortages.
I would say the ceasefire is on massive life support.
Threatening to resume hostilities, President Donald Trump shot down Iran's counter-proposal for peace talks.
It was just unacceptable. I have a plan, you know what it is? A very simple plan. I don't know why you don't say it like it is. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
The two sides remain at odds after Iran demanded reparations and sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. Trump accused Iran of reneging on a deal to surrender its enriched uranium. Iran says it's being reasonable and is only seeking its legitimate rights.
After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it.
If we are going to resolve this issue, both sides need to give certain, concessions.
A week of small skirmishes in the strait has left the world fearing escalation. Trump seems to be hoping a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping this week can provide an off-ramp.
I don't think they are going to just tell, the U.S. that we will pressure Iran without really getting anything in return from the U.S.
The longer it takes, the bigger the impact on global energy supplies, which are teetering on the brink of shortages. India called on its citizens to conserve fuel and work from home amid soaring costs, while France deployed an aircraft carrier strike group to the Strait of Hormuz, joining Great Britain in preparing to help secure the waterway. More than a month of disruption has left a dire situation that could linger for years after any peace deal. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
Oil prices have swung up and down repeatedly since the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. And today they were up again after the U.S. president rejected Iran's proposal. The price of Brent crude surged more than 4%, trading at about $105 U.S. a barrel. Oil is a global commodity, and when the price rises, people across many countries feel it, including in Canada. That means road trips this summer, if you're in a gas-powered vehicle, are likely to take a bigger bite out of your budget. Heather Urix-West looks at the impact the high cost of fuel is having on travelers and businesses.
Marie-Claude Provo and her dog Everest have big plans this summer, retracing a summer road trip from Quebec to Yukon in honor of her late dad.
I just left Montreal about 10 days ago and I'm going all the way to Yukon.
How did the high cost of gas kind of hit you with this plan?
Actually, it's changed my plans a little bit because now I'm going straighter, I guess, to my destination, and instead of doing a big round trip.
For RV enthusiasts, the price of gas means every adventure this summer will be a lot more expensive than years before.
We're looking forward to camping locally, of course, with gas prices. We're going to stay close by. Be a $400 tank when it comes time to fill it up, yeah.
According to Gas Buddy, Canadians have gone from paying on average between $1.30 and $1.40 a litre last summer to more than $1.83 a litre now.
Instead of taking multiple shorter trips where you're constantly driving back and forth, I think some people may choose one longer stay somewhere close to home, so renting a cabin, spending a full week at the lake. It's really being more intentional with travel this year and making the most of the driving that you are doing.
As travelers adjust their plans, destinations that rely on road trip traffic are bracing for impact, expecting fewer customers at a time when the cost of doing business is on the rise.
We always paid more for groceries. We always paid more for our supplies. supplies. But now fuel charges have gone through the roof. We can be paying thousands of dollars in fuel surcharges just for these big trucks to come all the way down to Waterton to deliver.
It's why business owners in Waterton Lakes National Park say they've been offering incentives like food vouchers or a free night stay to keep customers driving down through a season where pump prices are high. Heather Yurex, West Global News, Cochrane, Alberta.
Higher fuel prices are one factor affecting how Canadians travel. Canada's rocky relationship with the U.S. is another. Trips south of the border have gone down significantly since the start of the American president's trade war. And as Jillian Piper reports, new data suggests the Canadian boycott is starting to weaken.
For decades in Ogdensburg, New York, Canadian traffic has kept the border town alive.
And it hurts because I love Canada. And we've been so close for so many years.
Laurel Rathel's parcel service has thrived on Canadians taking the 1-hour drive from Ottawa to pick up packages. But she says since U.S. President Donald Trump took office again, Canadian business has dried up.
Typically, I would have probably 50 or 60 people come a day to pick up a package or a letter or whatever they had. Now it's more like 1 or 2, maybe 3 people.
In the face of the U.S. trade war and 51st state threats, Canadians have been avoiding the states, with visits down 30% since 2024. But it seems the height of the boycott may have finally been reached, with New Statistics Canada data showing for the first time in 15 months, Canadian travel to the U.S. is inching up, rising by 1.4% in April.
You can tell already that people's resolve to boycott the U.S. has waned.
The slight uptick in southern travel is compared to especially weak numbers in April 2025, which saw air and car traffic to the U.S. plummet after President Donald Trump imposed the so-called Liberation Day tariffs. But new research out of the University of Toronto shows that even when Canadians are traveling south, they are visiting fewer places and staying for less time than they used to.
You see a set of big cities that seem to have lost a fair share, like 50% of Canadian activity.
The U.S. Travel Association estimates the Canadian boycott last year cost the U.S. economy around $4 billion and nearly 300,000 hospitality jobs, Donna, but thinks the worst is likely over, projecting an uptick in Canadian visits this year.
Okay, Jillian Piper in Ottawa, thank you. A 32-year-old man in Ohio has been charged in the U.S., accused of luring a 10-year-old Manitoba girl online.
In December 2025, Manitoba RCMP learned a 10-year-old girl had been lured online and had sent sexually explicit material to someone she believed was a male in his early teens.
Investigators say the child's family discovered the exchanges and reported the activity to police. The conversations began on Snapchat and then moved to text messages. RCMP forwarded information to U.S. authorities who arrested the Ohio man. The investigation is ongoing, and police there believe there may be more victims. The charges include sexual exploitation of children and possession of child pornography. Under pressure to quit, coming up, the leadership challenge facing Britain's Prime Minister from inside his own party.
I know that people are frustrated by the state of Britain. I know I have my doubters. And I know I need to prove them wrong, and I will.
He won a landslide victory less than 2 years ago, but now Britain's Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer is fighting for his political life, and the challenge is from inside his own party. All day, Labour MPs have added their names to a list of those calling for Starmer to resign. There are now 70 of them, and 4 ministerial aides have quit. The Labour Party suffered terrible losses in local and regional elections last week, the worst in decades, ceding ground to the far-right Reform Party and the UK's Green Party. Starmer's cabinet meets first thing tomorrow. The man charged with attempting to assassinate the U.S. president last month has pleaded not guilty. 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen appeared in federal court in Washington today. Through his lawyer, he entered a not guilty plea on all charges, including assaulting a federal officer with a deadly weapon and gun charges. Allen tried to sprint past a security checkpoint at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in April and fired a shot at a Secret Service agent. He was tackled and arrested before being able to go down a staircase leading to the hotel ballroom where the president was. In Texas, 6 people have been found dead inside a boxcar on a cargo train near the Mexican border. Police say workers discovered the bodies of 5 men and 1 woman while inspecting the car at a rail yard on Sunday. The identities and details about the train's origin haven't been released. The medical examiner says the preliminary cause of death is heat stroke. Temperatures in the area reached as high as 40 degrees Celsius yesterday. Ahead, the lengthy legal effort to revoke the Canadian citizenship of a man accused in one of the world's deadliest terror plots. A man convicted in the U.S. and facing charges in India of helping to plan one of the world's largest terrorist attacks is fighting to keep his Canadian citizenship. Government documents obtained by Global News reveal allegations he lied on his citizenship application over 25 years ago. And yet he still has citizenship because, as Jeff Semple reports, revoking it in Canada can take an extraordinarily long time.
It was one of the world's deadliest terrorist attacks. In 2008, Pakistani gunmen opened fire on civilians in Mumbai, murdering 166 people, including 2 Canadians. The alleged organizer of the attack, Tahar Hussain Rana, was, and still is, a Canadian citizen.
I was deeply shocked.
This Canadian was shot 4 times in the attack, and 2 of his American friends were killed.
He should be in a prison. He certainly doesn't deserve a Canadian passport.
Rana, a former Pakistan Army captain, became a Canadian citizen in 2001 by allegedly lying on his application. After he was named a suspect in the Mumbai attacks, the RCMP launched their own investigation in 2009. Rana had claimed to live in this Ottawa apartment, but police said the owner told them he never did. Instead, the RCMP found he was actually living in Chicago. He allegedly used his Canadian passport to travel to Mumbai and plan the attacks. In 2012, Rana was convicted in the U.S. of supporting a terrorist group. And last year, he was extradited to India, where he's accused of plotting the attack. But he remains a Canadian citizen. The government's request for revocation is now before the courts.
Once you grant them citizenship, it's extremely difficult to get them out of the country.
A Global News review of other cases alleging fraud found it typically takes more than a decade to rescind citizenship. Another extreme example, this former Guatemalan commander. In 2014, a U.S. court found he was involved in massacring an entire village in the 1980s. Jorge Sosa was convicted in the U.S. in 2014, but his Canadian citizenship wasn't revoked until last February.
It is very, very difficult to have a revocation of citizenship.
The politics of 9/11.
Experts say the delays are partly due to a lack of resources and legal changes from former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who made it harder to revoke citizenship.
Rana, meanwhile, denies involvement in the Mumbai attacks and is still fighting to keep his Canadian citizenship, arguing that he's now faced an unreasonably long delay in processing his case. Jeff Semple, Global News, Toronto.
In the Netherlands, a painting that was stolen from a Jewish art collector who died fleeing the Nazis during the Second World War has now been recovered. Portrait of a young girl by Dutch artist Toon Kelder is believed to have hung for decades in the home of descendants of a notorious Nazi collaborator. Police could not confiscate the painting because of the Dutch statute of limitations, but the family has now voluntarily returned it. And that is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Raven Union Church in Raven, Alberta. We would love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.